Hi, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to the Gorilla HR podcast. I'm Becky Drozdz, and I am glad you're with me today. I am going to start off today talking a little bit about some current events, not necessarily a specific event, although I'm sure you can pick many things that are happening in this world. It's been a really rough, well, honestly, year, but a really rough week. We are in a period where we have just this polarization and this divide, whether it's political, whether it's religious, pick anything, and it just feels like we are so separated from each other right now, and that has been hard. Like, I have struggled, I am losing friends over it. It is something that is really giving me pause when I just think about some of the things I thought about. I knew about certain people and it's different and it just doesn't feel good. And so I wanted to do something a little bit different because I don't like getting hooked in the unhappiness of all of that. It's happening and I'm unhappy about it, but I also recognize that life still continues on and that there are things that I can be doing in my life. So, what I want to do in thinking about the things that are happening in the world is I want everybody to just take a little piece of paper or your notebook or pull out your phone wherever you are, unless you're driving. Don't do it while you're driving. But I want you to just stop for a moment and reflect and say, if you died today, I know it's grim, but if you died today and people are talking about you and they're saying, gosh, I really remember that person for X. That person was always so what? What is it that you want to be known for? What is your legacy? What is that one word that when people are thinking about you is going to come to mind? So take a moment, write it down. Even you, Rich, I know my podcast producer, who's amazing, he's sitting out here watching all of this. So I want him to do this too. So, anybody who's listening, anybody who's watching, just write down what is that legacy? What is that one word that you want people to use to describe you, especially if you were no longer here? Take a second, write it down, and now just set that to the side. Just put it off to the side, and we're going to come back to that. All right, let's get into our topic for today. So, with our topic today, I was recently having a conversation with my husband about the wage gap. And I have done a lot of reading on it. Obviously, this is an area of expertise for me where I talk about the difference in pay for men and women. And my husband, I love him, but this is an area where we disagree. This is one where he's like, I think men just are like more confident, they're more full of themselves, they're like cocky, and so they are willing to ask for more money. They're more likely to ask for a raise, they're more likely to negotiate it at the offer stage. And so I thought, I don't really know how much of that is true, but I did a little bit of research and I did find a Pew Research study, and they looked at men and women who are negotiating job offers, so at the starting phase, and they found that 32% of men would negotiate from an initial offer an employer made, and 28% of women would. So 32% and 28%, that is not a very big gap. So, one, when my husband watches this episode, I'm going to just shut him down because there's not a big difference between men and women asking for more money. I did also find some later studies that talked about MBA programs specifically, and it found that actually more women in MBA programs come out asking and negotiating for more money than male counterparts coming out of MBA programs. So the data doesn't really support that, it's just that men are asking for more. There's a ton more information about that. I don't want to get too far into that today because really, in thinking about, well, what is it that I want pay equity and I want to close that wage gap. So, my topic today is about how to ask for a raise. Who doesn't want more money, right? So, I want to close this gap. And if there's a mindset out there, a mentality that people just aren't asking for more money, well, maybe it's because they don't know how to do it. So, that is what we're going to talk about today. So, the first thing is, why do you want a raise? When you think about it, who doesn't, right? There are a lot of reasons. One, I just want to have more money. I want to be able to go on vacation. I don't want to have to live paycheck to paycheck. Whatever it is, there are a lot of different reasons. It might be that maybe you are told you have to start going back to an office. And so now you're thinking about the cost of your car and the maintenance and the gas and all of those things. So in your mind, that first question is like, well, why do I want this? Well, I'm going to tell you that from the employer's perspective, they don't effing care. Your employer does not care why you want a raise. It is not going to make any difference to them. If you go in and you say, I need more because now I have to come back to the office and I have to drive and it's putting maintenance on my car. I need more because and now I got a new dog and it's harder because I have some vet bills that I wasn't anticipating. To your employer, that stuff did make a bit of difference. So if that's your approach going in, I think you're not nearly going to find success as if you really think about a better question, which is why do you deserve a raise? What is it that you do that is adding value to the organization that is worth it for them to pay you and to pay you more? What are you doing to improve the bottom line? What are you doing to improve their customer experience? Think about the value that you create instead of well, I need more money because of this personal situation. Also ask yourself, are you a good employee? Like, do you show up on time? Do you participate? Do you contribute? Do you get along with people? Or are you difficult and you're a pain in the butt? That can have an influence on whether or not somebody's going to give you a raise. Think about your performance. Think about past performance reviews. Even if you don't have something really formal in place, think about the feedback that you've gotten from different managers, performers, customers, whatever it is that are helping you determine whether or not you're delivering on what you're expected to deliver on at work. The other thing that you might think about is whether or not you're paid competitively for the market. I think for a lot of people, that's not where their mind goes when they're thinking that they want a raise. They're again going back to that kind of personal need of like why this is good for me. Then we think about what the value you're adding. But I do think that there is some room to use in your negotiation, which is, are you competitive for the job that you're in? So the first step is really to think about, do you deserve that raise? Like, seriously ask yourself, not just that I want it, but are you doing things that warrant getting more money from your organization? So have that first hard look at yourself and determine, is this really worth it? Have I earned it? Do I deserve it? Sometimes that might be the performance piece of it. Sometimes it's that market piece where you're just left behind. One of the things that happens is something that's called pay compression. And I hear about this from a lot of employers that I work with. And this is what happens when you have jobs where they have moved and they've increased in what they're worth. But maybe you've had an employee who's been there for a long time and they got small increases year over year. And so now there's a bigger gap between what the market pays for that job and what that employee is paid. They might be a good performer, but maybe they've been there for 10 years and they got 2 or 3%, maybe even 4% on occasion raises, but that job moved a lot more. It became more valuable. Maybe there's less supply of candidates who can do it. So it's all of these different things together that should really be helping you figure out, do I deserve this? And then, of course, even if the answer to those things is no, certainly, if you want to go for it and you want to ask anyway, go ahead. If you don't ask, the answer is no. So if you want to take that shot and ask for that raise, go for it. All right. So you've decided that you're going to ask whether you think you deserve it or you're just, I want it. And so I'm going to go after it. And so the next step is to prepare yourself with data. If you just go in again saying, like, well, I want this because your employer is not going to care. So arm yourself with information. One of the things that I always advise people to do who are new into the workforce is to keep a little yay me folder. It can be an actual folder. So I have to admit, I do kind of like paper, and so I would print things, but you can do it electronically. You can save it. So if I was working with a customer, or if I was working in an HR capacity and I had an employee and I helped them resolve an issue, if they said something nice to me, they gave me a nice little note, or they sent me an email thanking me for being really helpful, I would save that. I would use those things sometimes to make myself feel better when I had a day where somebody was like a total jerk to me or something didn't go right. And I would be questioning myself and feeling really down. So I would use that information to say, like, no, I'm okay. I'm helping people. This is what I want to be doing. But this is also really helpful in the context of asking for that raise. So that feedback that you have from people, that information that's like you've done something above and beyond, tuck all of that away. Just keep a little file for yourself because it can help you in these discussions when you are then negotiating and asking for more money. The other thing that you can do is then look for data. So this is where the market piece comes in. So you might be saying, I want to raise, but is it really justified based on what's happening in the market? So you can look at a couple different sources. onetonline.org is a great government source. You can get information about what jobs are paying. Of course, talk to a consultant, buy data. There's lots of different places. Just be cautious with free data. I have had employers that I work with on a comp study, and they tell me that they've had people come in with their stack of papers and it's crowdsourced information. And it's not always accurate because it's not matching based on the job description. It's just somebody off the street saying, hey, this is the job I have, and it's not necessarily apples to apples. So be cautious with that crowdsourced information. Make sure that you've got valid data. Now, it's helpful if your employer has some kind of pay philosophy that they've shared. A lot of organizations are working towards that, but there are still many that don't have it. So you may not know if your employer says, hey, we are behind market or we want to pay ahead of market. But if you do know your employer's perspective on market, use that information to help you in your negotiation. Say you've said here that you want to pay competitively based on external market. This is the research I've done, and share that with them. That can help you. When you are looking at that data, just a couple quick tips. Look at the median, not an average. So median is if all the salaries are lined up, the one that's smack dab in the middle, that's the number that says this is the going rate for that job for a fully competent employee. So let's say it's a position where you were hired and you were brand new. You met kind of the minimum qualifications, but didn't have a whole lot of experience. You weren't really a proven performer yet. That's a great time to say, well, here's median. I'm doing everything that's needed in this job and I'm doing it well. This is where I would like to be. So use that information. You can also then say, hey, this is median. This is that average. This is that person that, or excuse me, not average, but the median. This is what a performer who is kind of in the middle of the road, they're doing what they need to do. But if you're that superstar and you are just hitting things out of the park, you're coaching and mentoring others, you are like that go to subject matter expert. Well, then you might say, I think that I should be over this median based on that data. So use the data to help you figure out what that number is. And then, of course, intrinsically, you might just have an idea of what you're looking for. Maybe some of those wants or some of those bills that you have are helping you figure out, well, this is the dollar amount that I need that would make me feel better or help me have a better work life effectiveness and standard of living. So lots of different things can go into that number. But think about that range. Think about where do you fit based on the value that you add to the organization. So once you've got that figured out, then the next thing to think about is one, who are you going to with this? I have been coaching employers for a long time on comp, and I always tell them that they need to prepare their managers and supervisors. So, as an employee, that manager or supervisor that you're working with is probably your go to. Like, they represent the company to you. Like, they're the ones who are feeding information to you, they're the ones doing your performance reviews. That's where I would start. I would go to that person first, and you can decide what's more appropriate. Do you want to have a verbal conversation? Even if you're remote, that can be over Teams, or you might or some other video call. It could just be a phone call, and you might feel like you want to just put it in writing. Depends on you, depends on your situation and where you're working. I think it's always great if you can have a conversation because it can be a little bit more interactive and more real time. But if you feel like you just need to go right to written, then go for it. I would also follow up if you do have the conversation verbally, then just follow up with an email or something to confirm what you've talked about. That's advice that I give to employers all the time, and it's advice that I also give to employees. Doing that, it really just helps create confirmation and clarity for both parties. So I encourage people, when you've had that conversation, just document to make sure that you are on the same page. So it's not a, ooh, I gotcha, and I'm trying to sneak something away. It's just to help with clarity and confirmation. So you go to your employer, you've explained to them the value that you're adding, you've shown them the material that says, I'm getting great feedback from customers, from clients, from my peers, whatever it is. I have these great reviews and great performance. And you go in and they say no. Certainly that can happen. And sometimes it does, right? I will say that the data out there does suggest that people who ask do get something. And so it doesn't hurt, but certainly they might be like, no. And they could give you any number of reasons. They might just say, no, that's that, and they don't want to give a reason. But more than likely, they're going to tell you the why. It might be about the timing, in which case I would ask them, well, when can we come back to this conversation? When can I come back and we talk about this again? You can also ask, well, what does it take for me to get a raise? If you feel that my performance isn't there yet, even if I may feel different, or you feel that the value I'm adding doesn't yet justify that level, then think about asking, like, what are the opportunities for me to do more? Maybe there are some things internally the company can help you with, but there might also be things that then you need to go out on your own. If there's some skill that your employer says, well, maybe you're lacking or you're just not quite where they would like you to be yet, then go out and find that. See if there's a class you can take. See if there's a seminar, a webinar, something that you can do, something low cost to help you develop those skills to get you to that point where your employer feels like a raise would be appropriate. You might end up deciding that that's just not the place for you. You might decide, all right, I decided that like this is important to me. I'm not getting it. My employer isn't willing or isn't able to do more for me. So maybe you're going to look for another position. In the end, you'll have to be okay with it. You'll have to be okay with that decision, even if it's not what you initially asked for, or even if the answer is completely no. I tell everybody you have to do what's best for you. Even when I sat in the HR seat and employers would be like, well, maybe I just have to quit. Maybe you do. Maybe that's what's right for you, right? Whatever it is, only you know that. Only you can figure that out. So ultimately, you're going to make the decision that's best for you, but don't just give up. Give it a try. Ask for what you're looking for and see if there's something that you can make work. What I don't want is for an employer to say no after you've gone in and then you're harping on it and you're negative about it. Certainly look for it as an opportunity to do more, to improve, to get the skills to get to that next step. But ultimately, again, you're going to have to be okay with it if you're going to keep working there. All right. It's that simple. You can do it. I think people just need a little confidence. So whether you're man, woman, whoever you are, go out there. If you feel like that you are deserving of a raise, go out and ask for it. Again, if you don't ask, the answer is no. All right. I'm going to end with my segment. Oh my God, Becky, look at that comment. And so I know that I have shared with you some of the crazy things that people have said before. And I get a lot of just like general rude comments. And I'm like, well, you people need to find something better to do with your time. I even found that on TikTok, it will hide comments. It says some comments are hidden for your well being. And I will say I leave those hidden. I don't care to know what people are saying there. But when I think about some of these things that are happening and the things that people say, then I think back to that initial question I asked you. What do those people want to be known for? If they're just spreading hate and saying negative things, is that what they want to be about? So think about that word that you wrote, look back to where you wrote it in your notebook, and I want you to ask yourself, are you living that? Are your interactions day to day with people, are your interactions in social media, even if it's people with a name that's a screen name and you're never going to meet them, are you living your life in a way that if you were to die today, people are going to remember that legacy and that thing that you said you wanted to be known for? So think about that when you're interacting. Think about that when you're posting on social. Let's be good humans. Let's take care of each other. We've got enough fighting. We've got enough violence. So let's work together. Let's make this world a safe space for all of us. Thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe, come back. And of course, if there are things that you want to talk about, send me an email and let me know. Thank you.
That's it for this episode of the Gorilla HR Podcast. We hope you found some unconventional wisdom and actionable advice to help you in your own HR journey. Remember, we're all working together to build better workplaces. Want to join in the conversation? Send us your questions, stories, and maybe even your own Gorilla tactics to podcast@gorilla-hr.com. And if you enjoyed the show, please like, subscribe, and share with your network. Until next time.